Joining me on the program is former House Representative from Sheridan County, Mark Jennings. He's now running for the House of Representatives one more time in House District 30. Mark, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, and as always, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm glad we could find the time to fit you in here. So I guess the first question, same one that everybody gets on the show. It's been a while since you've been on. So why don't you give me the Cliff Notes version of who Mark Jennings is?
Well, married to my lovely bride of Dana of 45 years, going on 45, and we have 3 kids, all 3 involved in some kind of political entities, and I've pastored the Bighorn Cowboy Church in Bighorn, Wyoming, and been for the last 10 years working in 12 years by the time we get going on this, on the political front of conservative ideas, trying to insert the founders' points of view back into our society.
All right. So I guess the big question on, at least my mind, is you were in the legislature for quite a while, almost a decade. Then you ran for the Senate.
Was that all? Just 10 years?
Yeah, around there, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And then, so you ran for the Senate, and you were unsuccessful in that run. So you've had a bit of a break. Why are you doing this again?
Well, there are a couple of things that I felt like, I felt like that there was a lot of really good things that had occurred. We watched the needle go more conservative in the last 10 years to the point where in the House, actually the conservatives carry the day. And but I feel like that I still have a couple of things that I would like to see in moving that needle. One of the main things for me this go round would be to look at repealers that you'll see it at the national level, DOGE, and you'll see checking into the fraud and making government smaller, more accountable. And I think that now that we have more conservatives in the legislature, I think that's more possible. And so I would like to give a nudge to them to do that even more.
So are you suggesting that there's fraud going on? Is that what I heard?
I'm suggesting that I can't imagine that there's not some problem in all 50 states. Wyoming is not an exception to that.
If you don't bother to look, how are you going to know?
Yeah. Fair enough. No, I think you're exactly right, Ken, that if we never go and hold people accountable, then you never know if there's anything untoward going on.
Yeah.
All right. So your first time in the legislature, the first period of time you were in the legislature, parental rights, right to life legislation, those were all big focuses for you. And I'm certain that you probably have some designs on some legislation that you would like to see. What are some of those?
Well, in the parental rights, that's one that I feel like that we didn't get done. We'll see if it gets done this next session. We need to bring some accountability to that. We need to put some teeth in that legislation because parents statutorily have the fundamental right to raise their children. And what happens when a bad actor interrupts that natural fundamental right? And so I'd like to make sure that we bring that into play. Hopefully that'll happen this session. When you talk about some of the other things that I think there is a question, and if you look at the good job that the conservatives are already doing, appropriations and stuff like that, Ken's involved in that. I think that it is very important. But I think not only is it a question of looking for the fraud and holding accountable, we run something like 600 bills.
It's a crazy amount.
It's hundreds of bills. And I always tell people out on the campaign trail, we pass like 250 each session or every year or two. Did that make your life more free? Did it make it better? And almost without exception, those people, were inundated with laws. Some of them are antiquated and they're not important. Others are just part of a nanny state bureaucracy that has continued to move their agenda forward. And I'd like to see the conservatives push back and let's do some repealers. Let's they're looking at that with some of the agencies now, and I'd like to have them take a harder look. I'd like to see us move towards a cash-based budgeting and zero-based budgeting. Both of those would be important, along with, I don't think the battle is at all over property tax.
Well, that's where I wanted to go next.
Yeah.
You were the main sponsor of the acquisition. First the acquisition study bill, and then the following year to actually put in an acquisition-based property tax system. Would you still advocate for that, or I mean, it failed? Do you think there needs to be changes made?
It actually passed in the House. It failed in the Senate, and I am very much in favor of that. The main thing to me is that I'd like to see our taxation be honest. We're taxing an unrealized capital gains. It's always been held in our country's history until a few decades back that was not something that was allowed. And so I am very much in favor of acquisition.
Now, there's been a lot of coverage over the more conservative group in the House of Representatives, the Freedom Caucus. Some outlets say they're too extreme. I happen to like them. But what is your view of the Freedom Caucus? And the second part of that is, if you were successful in your run for the House of Representatives, would you join the Freedom Caucus?
Well, the first part is that I know all those people. When it went to a national Freedom Caucus, I did not join, and I actually do not intend to. To the second part of your question, I like to tell people that they vote with me about 90% of the time, and they're very good people, and they have good values and good conservative points of view. I don't want the national. I don't want that target painted on me that I'm listening to someone out of D.C. I work for...
You know that's not true, right? No matter what the cow pie says.
I do know that's true, or not true, but they get painted with it. And
certainly.
For me, the number one thing is to work for those 10,000 people in House District 30. And you can caucus with, or you can meet like-minded conservatives without having to be a member of that caucus. And I know all of them that are. I think they're good people. Well, maybe not Ken, but the rest of them are all good people. No, especially Ken. It's just not for me.
Now, I know the last time you were in the House, I think you were number one on the list of the top conservatives, which I personally think that's a good idea. I mean, I think that's a good thing. I want my representatives to be really conservative-minded people. However, there's been a lot in the media saying that, the folks in the Freedom Caucus, the more conservative members, they really can't work with the other side. Is that true? And if yes or no, why?
So the conservative movement, this goes back to history, and even part of the history of the State Freedom Caucus, which was before the National Freedom Caucus. I tell people, and actually your show is going to be the first time where I'm going to say it publicly out to lots of people.
Breaking news.
The people that made the conservative movements were the people like Steve Harshman or Kermit Brown or Eric Barlow or Albert Somers. It was their refusal to allow the conservatives, the duly elected conservative members, to have a voice. And I'm not aware, I think the conservative members that I know are willing to work with anybody that has an idea, and they want to bring it and hold it up in the arena of ideas and see if it will work. For me, I think that's important. Listen, I'm probably not going to vote with my Democrat colleagues once in a blue moon, but I still want to hear their ideas, because what if I missed something? And so I think that we should have healthy debate. Now, I don't think that should change our convictions. Now, maybe it'll change our opinion on a piece of legislation or something of that nature, and we can work along those lines. But we're Republicans. We should be standing with our Republican Party platform.
Okay, now you mentioned that we have to have healthy debate in any deliberative body, and I happen to agree with you. However, we're living in a time where it seems to me that you're either on one side or the other, and you might characterize that as we're a pretty polarized bunch right about now. So I understand that you say we have to have debate. How is that possible? What are you going to do to make that possible, to have that debate when you have two forces on either side that they don't know, how to make that happen, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's actually worse than that, David, because I view it as there are three factions. There are the Democrat on the other side of the aisle, and then there's the Democrats that have crossed over the aisle that are inside our party, and then there are the people that you can have a healthy debate with. And I think that we do that. It was one of the things that I'm not sorry for having had a break from the legislature, because it's one of the things that's the most distressing is that what you're watching is a transition. The rhinos and the Democrats were polarized and weren't allowing the conservatives to even have a voice. Now they don't have a choice. And so my hopes in there and my push in there would be to have that healthy debate return and set aside that partisan, not the conviction aspect, but the part that says we won't talk to you at all. And I think that we do listen to even those that are against us. And then we take the battle on in the arena of ideas. And personally, like I said before, I'm probably not going to vote with a Democrat once in a blue moon, but I still want to hear the debate. And so I encourage
happen to agree with you. And yeah. I think I would say that, and Ken will get your opinion on this too, but I think some of the best programs that we've done recently on this show have been with Democrats. The first one with Trey Sherwood, that was a heck of a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. The one with Carly and Mike Yin, well, now I know what it feels like to be snarled at for an hour. But I think that we have made a real effort on this show to reach out to folks on the other side that we don't necessarily agree with and just have a discussion. So I guess, Ken, you're in the legislature now. Mark, you were, and you're trying to become in the legislature again. So I don't know that we've really got to an answer of my question is, how do we engage with the other side to craft meaningful, positive legislation?
I think you'll see an example of that in appropriations. And you have a number of us that are pretty conservative that are in there, and we're making our case. And you have our friend Trey Sherwood, and I do count her a friend.
I like her. She was fun.
Yeah, she made me a birthday cake. I have to like her. She has a wrong-headed idea, in my mind, about the proper role of government and how things should be done. She has a very soft heart. In fact, my wife made her one of the pictures she does, and the flower that she chose was the bleeding heart, which I thought was perfect. But we sit down and we often have very frank, open conversations, and she will come up with things sometimes that, quite frankly, because I tend to live in an echo chamber, I hadn't really thought of. And it helps perfect your thinking. Steel sharpens steel. And it also gives you kind of an inside view as to how they think and how they're going to attack and approach your ideas, your convictions, which are, in my case, I would agree with Mark, are basically the Republican platform. Is pretty much exactly. In fact, Mark and I both helped craft that years ago. And I think it's valuable. Now, that having been said, and I learned that expression from you, Mark, there are people that you just flat can't trust. I was told by a couple of people that I won't name because I don't want to point out Ogden Driscoll or Mike Giroux, but they told me before we brought up the thing on the Wyoming Business Council that they were in with us that they were ready to see it go away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I took that with a healthy dose of skepticism, and they ended up proving me right. So it is what it is. But that healthy debate allows, especially in today's day and age where everything's on YouTube, it allows people to go there and see for themselves, should they be interested, what the arguments are, and make up their own mind, and then better decide who they need to vote for going down the stretch.
Mark?
I think I'm total in agreement there with Ken. I think in answer to your question, there are people that are not going to come to the debate. And I think that's sad. But I think now that the conservatives have a voice, that's part of our job is to show that we are willing to listen. They may not be able to get past the polarization. And if they're not, then that's the end of honest and open debate with that person.
That'd be
perhaps.
a sad day.
Yeah, it is a sad day when that happens, and I've seen it happen. I watched it happen in my 10 years. You would watch the vote, and you could predict the vote, right down to the vote. And that told you that by and large, the debate was dead. The polarization was what was happening. But in answer to your question, our job is to make it available. We can't force any more than we can force the people in our own district that don't like us. Listen, I'm not the candidate for everybody in House District 30. There are people who have much more liberal ideas than me.
We won't mention any Gail Simmons.
And but to be as open and honest, I do think that is our best shot of bringing back the open and honest debate.
See, and I think I agree with both of you. And I think I would add that I think the debate in and of itself is a healthy and a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That, like you said, we're probably not going to agree with some people, hardly ever. But I think that it is still valuable to have the conversation because you may find that maybe there's a perspective you hadn't thought of, and maybe that needs to be included in the discussion. All right, so we're about out of time, and I do appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. So why don't you give me your 10 or 15-second elevator pitch?
Well, I still hold to the same values that I did for 10 years. I've not changed. The needle in the legislature has changed, and I feel like that in this new day where the conservatives are finally getting a voice, I feel like that I'd like to go back and try and work on a few of these things, make it better for the people of House District 30 and Wyoming.
Fair enough.
I wanted to throw in there a little bit. Whew.
Ooh, boy,
Push
that's
the right
interesting.
button. Right buttons are hard to find when you're trying to think about what you're going to say as well. I want to say this about Mark. You did this to me. No, seriously. You mentioned, Mark, the success that the 68th legislature, specifically the House, that we have had. We could never have come anywhere near that without the paving that people like Aggie and Sherry Steinmetz
Roy
and
Edwards
you
and-
and Chuck, and I was getting to Roy. What little time I had to spend with Roy made a tremendous impact on how I looked at things and how to handle myself down there. And I just want to take a few minutes to thank you for everything that you've done for getting me into this. And I'm kind of anxious to see you back down there in Cheyenne. Your leadership, it's a little bit different style than some of the others that's down there, but you have a depth of wisdom and understanding about the arguments. After 10 years, virtually everything comes to the floor, you've already heard. And you would raise flags and objections that I wouldn't even have thought of until 3 or 4 years down the road after I got my butt whipped 2 or 3 times. So thank you for what you've done and for being a huge part of Wyoming's success.
Well, I'll give the credit to God and to the people of House District 30 for believing in me, and I appreciate that. And listen, the people of Wyoming have sent some really good people down there. It's getting better and better.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. That's Mark Jennings, candidate for House District 30.